Welcome to Cheyenne Blog and Theater. Tonight we have the pleasure of having with us Peter F. Matera, a candidate for surrogates court judge in Ulster County, New York. Nice to have you with us, Peter.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about surrogates court? What is it?
Surrogates court is a court that oversees the probate of wills, administration of estates, guardianships, and adoptions.
Very interesting. And why would you want to be a judge in surrogates court?
In 4 short words, I love surrogates court. When I was first going to run for surrogates court, I spoke to an attorney friend of mine, and I told her I was going to run, and she said, "Why?" And without thinking, I responded, "I love surrogates court." And that's the truth. I started in surrogates court when Judge Trafficante was the surrogate here in Ulster County.
And what is it about surrogates court that you love in particular? Is it the people? Is it the type of cases? What would you say that drives this passion for you?
It's everything. Surrogates court has some of the most fascinating legal issues. It has interesting factual issues. I've always enjoyed practicing in surrogates court. The judges have been wonderful. The surrogates court sounds a little boring. It's anything but boring. Some of my most interesting cases have come out of surrogates court. And I've worked 29 years for the Ulster County District Attorney's Office as a part-time prosecutor. So I've had some very interesting cases come out of the criminal courts, but I have every bit of interesting cases, if not more, coming out of surrogates court practicing.
Can you tell us or explain to us some of the legal issues you might encounter in surrogates court? An example of one, perhaps?
Sure. I can give you an example of a case that I was involved in not too long ago, where a will was being offered for probate. Okay. The will was actually drawn up, was a computer will. It was printed off a computer, and the testator, that's the person who makes out the will, the person who signs it at the bottom, leaving his property to someone, he did apparently sign it. There were 3 different writings on it: pencil, ballpoint pen, and flare tip pen. And the will was apparently witnessed by 2 witnesses. I was appointed to represent the child of the decedent. And if that will were admitted to probate, my client, the child, would have gotten nothing. Okay. And if the will were set aside and not found to be a valid will, my client would get everything. So I investigated the will. It looked suspicious on its face, although it had all the elements of a will. I had hearings and questioned the witnesses to the will. It became painfully obvious during those hearings that these 2 witnesses did not witness the testator, the decedent, sign that will. But offering a will to probate is not a high level of proof that's required by the proponent of the will.
Okay.
So I went a step further. Rather than just say that the witnesses' stories don't match, I hired a forensic computer expert who came in and made a determination that the will was actually printed up a few days after it was allegedly signed. So it was impossible for it to have been signed and witnessed when it allegedly was.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It was, because not only are the facts interesting, but with that there were lots of legal issues that applied at this time. So it challenges you on so many levels, and it challenged me on so many levels to the investigation, to question the witnesses, to check the legal issues, and then to go the extra step and hire an expert to make that determination that when the will was printed.
That's very, very interesting. Now, you've mentioned a few times the word probate. Can you tell our audience what that means or what that entails?
Sure. Someone drafts a will. Usually it's drafted by an attorney, and then it's signed by the testator, the person who ultimately, when they die, that will determine how their estate is distributed. That when a person dies, that will is then taken to surrogates court, and it's offered to probate. Basically, that means you're asking the court to determine that it is, in fact, a valid will. So
it sounds to me from the story that you had just told all of us that you are very passionate about the clients that you have. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yes, I am passionate about my clients. I care very deeply for them. One of the ways that I've shown my compassion to clients is to have them avoid unnecessary litigation, because sometimes people litigate for the wrong reasons. They litigate because they're hurting. They just lost a loved one, and they're not thinking clearly. So they're upset with the family member, and they'll litigate really just to fight with the family member. Sometimes it's for greed. They want more than the will was going to leave them, or more than they think that they're entitled to. And it's important to keep them focused on what's truly important in life: family. So in advising clients, I advise them as to the law, what they can expect to get, assuming their case is they prevail in the court, and I advise them as also to the practical aspect. What can you win versus what you're giving up by fighting? The cost, the legal expenses, the rift in the family, or sometimes making it worse, and often I can have a client determine on their own what's in their best interest. And usually what's in their best interest is to focus, again, on the family, not on the litigation. Sometimes litigation is necessary because sometimes it's right, and you need to set the record straight, and you need to step forward and defend yourself and your position. And sometimes other people are being unreasonable, and you have to stand your ground. But often you can get people to come together and come up with a reasonable, fair compromise. And quite frankly, true victory is not necessarily winning a fight. True victory is often avoiding a fight.
So now when people come to you, they're very much in pain and grieving for the person that they lost. And when you have to sit down with these people and explain to them their options, if you will, and about the will itself, is it hard to separate how you feel for them emotionally from the facts at hand?
I can do that, but I usually don't have to do that.
Okay.
Because that's part of what I believe makes me a good lawyer, and what would make me a very good judge, is that I understand we're dealing with people. We're not just dealing with facts and law. We're dealing with people. So when I tell someone what the legal issues are and how their factual issues apply to those legal issues, I also understand that I'm not talking to a machine. I'm not talking to a professional litigator. I'm talking to someone who has feelings, who has emotions, who's probably gone through grieving at this point, and someone who may not even be thinking clearly. So sometimes I'll get responses from clients that may even be offensive, but I realize where it's coming from. It's coming from a person who right now is hurting, who's gone through a difficult time in their lives. And so I don't necessarily want to separate the emotions from the facts and the law. Not all the time. Sometimes you have to compartmentalize so that you don't mix your emotions into your advice. But you have to keep your emotions there to make sure that you deal with somebody as a human being and not otherwise. Litigation was necessary.
So it seems to me that you have a real passion for your clients, and how would you bring that to your judgeship?
Well, that's me, so that is going to come with me wherever I go. But I think that's necessary. It's very important for a judge to have compassion, especially in surrogates court. As I say, people lost a loved one. The most important thing that a judge needs to remember in dealing with people is that you're elected to the bench to serve, and that's what you need to do. You maintain order in your courtroom, you make appropriate decisions, but you serve the people, and I will never lose sight of that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Matera. It's been great having you here on Cheyenne E-Blog and Theater, and thank you, audience, for listening in. And please feel free to read the rest of the article on Mr. Matera and his potential candidacy.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheyenne.